All right, there we go. Good morning, everybody. Get this going so I can see all of your comments here. All right. Hope you are all having a good day. I'm running a little late this morning. Slept through my alarm. Woke up at 9:15 instead of the usual 8 o'clock. Oh well. Had a bit of a... I do appreciate your prayers over the weekend. I'm feeling much better. Obviously, I can talk. I did wake up this morning with the headache to end all headaches. But since I've kind of been trying to cut back on pop and didn't have any coffee over the weekend, I'm thinking it's mostly caffeine related, so hence my giant Star Trek mug filled with coffee. All right, well, let's take a look, see what our weather is doing today. All right. It is currently a crisp, cool 53 degrees in the great metropolis of Brandon, Iowa. They have a high of only 57 with some rain throughout the day and possibly a thunderstorm. I don't know if any of you were awake during the thunderstorm last night, but it was an interesting one. All right. Go to our daily, get kind of the idea for the rest of the week. Tomorrow, still pretty cool with some rain. Thursday starts to warm up. Same with Friday, but rain, thunderstorms. And then Saturday and Sunday back to the mid-70s. So I think fall might finally be here, folks. All right, well, without further ado, this is from the Mornings with Jesus devotional. With the tongue we praise our Lord and Father, and with it we curse human beings, who have been made in God's likeness. Out of the same mouth came praise and cursing. My brothers and sisters, this should not be. Can both fresh water and salt water come from the same spring? That comes from James chapter 3, verses 9 through 11. I was in a store looking for furniture when I was interrupted by a storm of profanity coming from an office near where I was standing. A man was yelling and cursing. A few minutes later, he stepped out of the office into the showroom, unaware that I had overheard him. He smiled and greeted me. "Hello, how are you today?" I immediately recognized him from a friend's church. He was a member of the praise team and sang every Sunday. "Have a blessed day," he called out as I was leaving the store. On the way to my car, I thought about what I just experienced. How can a Christian talk and act this way? What a hypocrite, I thought. Then I felt Jesus talking to me. How do you talk when you're angry? That thought hit home. I knew I said things when I was angry that I shouldn't. How can I profess to be a Christian and then blurt out profanities? How does that affect my witness? Are others confused when my actions contradict what I profess? I had to admit that I was just as guilty as the man in the store. Sometimes my language did not reflect Christ-like behavior. Jesus had used this man's behavior to convict me of my own. Jesus longs for his goodness to flow from our lives. This can include the words that flow from our mouths. We can honor him with the way that we live our lives and the way we interact with others. When our words are uplifting and encouraging, we sound like him. It doesn't get much better than that. There is a bit of a trend I've come to notice that a lot of ministers seem to come from farming roots. For those of you who don't know, before becoming a minister, my father was a dairy farmer. When I was at licensing school, a couple years ago. Has it been a couple years, or has it only been? I don't know. When I was in licensing school, the a lot of the other students that were there with me were dairy farmers. In fact, I know some still work on dairy farms. One I see on his Facebook post, he takes the youth of the church to see the cows on the dairy farm there. And it's kind of an interesting idea. What is it about dairy farmers? Now, granted, you have to understand, statistically speaking, about half of my licensing school class we had in Dubuque were from Wisconsin. And Wisconsin is known for its dairy. So, I mean, statistically speaking, you are going to see a bit of that. But it does show something in, I don't know if it's a commonality or a similar mindset. But one thing, I'm in talking with my father and talking with my uncles who work the farm as well. If your patience is ever going to be put to the test, it's when you're trying to deal with an uncooperative cow. And I think we all have been in that position where we feel like we're slamming our head against a wall, trying to, in dairy farmer's case, trying to convince a cow to go where you want it to go, or in many of us, other aspects. I'm sure most of you are aware, for 3-4 years, something like that, I ran a Casey's in Forest City. A small little Casey's. We didn't even have a kitchen, but each morning, there are many times, how should I put this? There are many times in the morning that I was glad that the cameras that watched me did not have audio. Because there would be instances when I would come, and one of the things I would do every morning is make sure the cappuccino machine was ready to go, get the roller grills going, make sure all these things are ready to go for the day. And in order to do that, I relied heavily on the night shift the night before. And there would be some instances when I would open up the cappuccino machine and a lot of it would be either empty or had not been cleaned. Cappuccino machines, just so you know, when you go to a convenience store, it's not an actual cappuccino machine. There's no milk frothing or anything. It's a powder that gets mixed with water and gets put in your cup. And there's this inside, if you ever open up one, there's this big kind of reservoir filled with powder that when you press the button, a wheel in the back turns that spins a big gear in the powder reservoir that pushes some powder forward, which lands in this little cup, which is connected to the water line, which is getting hot water sprayed in. And together they go into this other little thing with a little, we call it the pinwheel, that mixes it all up, and then it goes into your cup. That means that if any part of that gets wet and doesn't get cleaned throughout the day, it is a pain to clean the next day. Have you ever made chocolate milk, from the powders, so like the Nesquik powders or the old Ovaltine powders, and you didn't put water, you didn't rinse out your glass beforehand, and you just left it in the sink, and you know how much of a pain that is to try and clean? That's what happens to a cappuccino machine if it goes all night with no one using it and doesn't get cleaned. It's a pain. It is a huge pain. So there'd be many times that I would, in the morning, open up the cappuccino machine and then proceed to yell and scream for language that I will not share on a family-friendly devotional. And that is something that, of course, going into the ministry, I have to curb. I can't, every time something frustrates me, I can't descend into a profanity-laden tyrant. Because people will see that. People, if I go out at Walmart and they don't have my favorite cereal, people will see me freaking out, and what does that say about the message that I am trying to send? And that doesn't just mean ministers. As you saw in the devotional, each one of us has to try and live, put our effort into what our words say. Make our actions match our professions of faith. A couple weeks ago, I talked about wearing the uniform of Christ. That what we say, what we do, reflects on how people come to know Christ. Just as we know God through Christ, people will come to know Christ through us. That means we have to try and curb those negative aspects of ourselves. And it's hard. It's very hard. They say it takes 7 times longer to break a bad habit than it does to relearn something new. Or to learn just something new out of the blue. You take 7 times longer to break the habit because you got to break the bad and then learn the good. So it takes time. And it's hard. But it's possible. If we truly want people to see Christ in our actions, we have to act like Christ. We have to talk like Christ. That means we have to show love. We have to show compassion. We have to always be aware that we are wearing that uniform. I've long been fighting the idea that Christians are just these backward people who think science is evil. No. I mean, yeah, you go back to the Salem witch trials, sure, but science was not exactly structured correctly. I mean, you go back to the Dark Ages, people were still thinking that the Earth was the center of the universe. We have to let people come to know what Christians actually are. Because what happens, they see the Christians on TV. And I understand the irony of me appearing before you on a screen to decry some televangelists, but we have to let them see what Christians actually are like. Because right now we're being represented by, in my opinion, some of the craziest of us. And I'm not saying that all televangelists are bad. There are some that I actually enjoy, who actually profess a message of hope, a message of love, a message of faith. And they do so without constantly trying to raid your pocketbook. But unfortunately, that is the minority of what you see, of what people are exposed to. And so they see a different side of Christianity. What we say, what we do, reflects on the church. And if people see us acting with compassion, with love, they might think that Jesus is a different person than when they see these Christians who demand money, who profess, just spew hatred from their mouths. That's not what Christ did. And that shouldn't be what we do. It's easy for us to descend in those profanity-laden tantrums, for lack of a better word. But sometimes we have to take a moment and let Christ enter our heart. And it will feel bitter swallowing some of that anger. But there are better ways to focus our efforts. Ways that we can always live as He wanted us to live. You just gotta look for it. So, need more coffee. That's all I have for the devotional. Couple things. One, I'm gonna show you this. We're still going to be refraining from in-person worship for a little bit. I'm going to show you Benton County here. We're still kind of in an upward trend. We were doing good. We had this downward trend, and I was really getting hopeful, and then we did this. So we're actually currently higher than we were when we stopped our in-person worship. So again, we're going to hold off for a bit longer. I need to see at least a couple weeks of a good, steady downward decline for both Buchanan and Benton County before we resume in-person worship. Because we need, well, that's, there are many reasons that I've gone into a week ago or a couple weeks ago. You can watch that devotional if you really want to know. But that's kind of where we're sitting with that. Let me come back. There we go. Also, the DVDs. Last week when I was burning the DVDs, I noticed that I was going to be running out this week. So I quick ordered some more. And I had a small pack of DVDs. They're multicolored. But I figured, well, that will hold me over until I get the new ones. So I got these nice little multicolored DVDs here. You know, I got purple or blue or whatever have you. And when I went to test them, all of these multicolored ones, every last one of them, did not work. Not a single one. I don't know if their format is different or what the deal is. So, I will not have any DVDs right now. I've got a giant pack of them coming on Amazon later this week. And so once I get those, I'll burn them and let you all know. I'm hoping here within the next day or two. But I'll quick make a burning trip and run them over to the churches and get them taken care of that way. But I just wanted you to all be aware. I am trying. But so it is. I am waiting for that, and that's where the DVDs. I am waiting on the DVDs. So other than that, I think that's all I have. If you have any prayer requests or any hymns you'd like to have try to cover in a devotional, let me know. I'll try and get them covered. I'm hoping sometime to get switched back to some of the hymn devotionals. It's been a while. I don't like to do them back to back to back because then they become repetitive. But I do like every so often to kind of revisit them. So they will be coming back. There's a big one I was working on last week that just never, with me getting sick and the holiday weekend and everything, just never came together. But hopefully I'll get that organized later this week, and the DVDs. And worship will be online again for Sunday. I'll have that out at the usual times. Anything else, feel free to send me a message, and I'll try and address it as best as I can. Otherwise, I hope you all have a wonderful day, and I will see you all when I see you. So have a good day, everybody.